Hello, girls, gays, and theys, and welcome back to the Queer and podcast. I'm so excited to have you back on the pod this week. I'm your host, Nastasia Nastic. I use she, her pronouns, and today's topic is going to look a little bit different than my previous topics, only because I won't be talking out of personal experiences. I'm not sharing something vulnerable about my life and my story growing up queer, but rather I'm kind of taking a more educational approach and taking a more like debunking of some untrue facts and some untrue ideologies. Well, they're not facts if they're untrue, but you know what I'm saying, like untrue misinformation that's being spread. That's the right wording. Yeah. So today's topic is going to be about TERFs, the TERF ideology, some of the main misinformation, etc. So without further ado, let's get into it. I don't want this video to be too long. I don't want my educational videos to be too long in general, because I think that the attention span to actually like reciprocate like information is like, I know for myself, like I probably wouldn't listen to like an hour and a half or like an hour of like just information and like education, because it gets too much, and I totally understand that, and I kind of want to do it in chunks, and doesn't mean that all I want to say and all that I have to say is going to be said here, but I mean, I'm going to try and get through most of what I think about it and everything like that, but bear with me. Again, this is still very new. I'm still figuring out some things, as you can definitely tell. But yeah, I'm excited for today's topic because I think it's important, and I think especially right now, with there being so much anti-trans legislation, anti-trans misinformation, I think it's important for cis allies like myself to stand unapologetically and proudly with trans people and with their rights. So that's what I'm here to do today. Yeah, I hope that I can provide a voice to some people who may not be in a situation where they feel safe to use their voice. So yeah, let's just get into today's topic. So I'm going to be giving some very like just minimal background information in case you aren't aware of what TERFs are. TERFs are like the specific, like if we break down the word TERF, it's trans exclusionary radical feminists. I personally don't want to call them feminists, because I think that that's not what feminism is, but that's what they call themselves. So I'm just gonna put that name out there just so that you know what it stands for, right? So basically, the ideology behind TERF is that trans women are not real women, and that they do not belong in women's spaces such as women's bathrooms, women's sports, and anywhere else that can be like exclusively for women or something like that, or something that's like gendered. And and they also believe that not only that, but they also believe that trans women are harming cis women, and they are dangerous, and attacking cis rights and whatever. So yeah, I'm here to debunk that information, talk about why it's harmful, why it's not true, and all of that. So bear with me. It's going to be a lot of information, probably, especially if you aren't aware of like the basics, but I think it's important. So yeah. So the first like uprise in the TERF ideology happened in 2008, but recently it has spread a lot more. It kind of went 2008 is when it like first started spreading, and then it kind of died down, but then now in like I think 2001, 2002, 2003, it's really spiked up again. And I think that the reason for that is Twitter, but specifically J.K. Rowling, I don't know how you pronounce her last name, but I honestly do not give a fuck if I'm mispronouncing it. J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, started spreading her TERF ideology all over Twitter and, spreading misinformation about trans women, trans individuals in general. And with, her tweeting all of those things, the TERF ideology came to arise again because she gave them a platform, she gave them influence, and she gave them power. And when you give people a platform, influence, and power for the wrong things, they're going to use it for the wrong things, and wrong things are going to be spread, which is why it is very, I think power, influence, and a platform are good things, but they can also be very harmful things depending on what your plan is to use all of that on. So yeah, J.K. Rowling is obviously a huge influential person because she wrote Harry Potter series, which blew up, and a lot of people love the books, a lot of people love the movies, understandably so, right? I don't have anything against Harry Potter necessarily. It's not really my cup of tea, but I don't care about it. I just hate J.K. Rowling, and I hate everything that she stands for. So yeah, it kind of started there. And I think that especially when you are like an author and like just kind of like an influential person like that, and like people think that you're like intellectual because you wrote books, and I feel like not anyone just writes books. Like I feel like people really have respect for authors because they're like, oh, authors are super intellectual because they write super great and all of this and all that, but that's not the case always. So I think that young people especially were very easily influenced by, the TERF ideology that J.K. Rowling was spreading on Twitter. Because if it's your favorite book and your favorite series, and, the author of your favorite series is tweeting stuff, and you're too young to know better, you're going to fall for it very, very, very easily. And maybe you won't want to educate yourself further because you'll think that that's right and that makes sense to you. And it's kind of hard to get out of it once you're in it. Yeah, it's always harder to get out of something once you're in it than to get out of something before you're in it, like to check the facts and stuff like that. But it's definitely not impossible. It's definitely not an excuse. So, yeah. Basically, J.K. Rowling kind of just started tweeting things on Twitter that were devaluing trans women, and she was in support of a lot of anti-trans legislation, such as like banning gender-affirming care, banning trans women in women's sports, and I have no words. I have no words. Yeah. Here's why that's harmful. Here's why that's not true. So first of all, it's not true because trans women have never, ever, 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 ever tried to attack cis women or take away cis womanhood, whatever the fuck that means. If anything, trans women have always stood beside cis women in history. They have always stood behind human rights and equality. Trans women were on the front lines of the Stonewall riots. Trans women were on the front lines of reproductive justice, and when there was reproductive rights protests for when Roe v. Wade was, being questioned, and then again when it was overturned. So to attack trans women and to make them the villains is not only wrong, but it's also so fucking evil. It's evil because these women have stood by you. They have stood by your rights every single day, throughout every single historical event, throughout every single protest. They were there. They were there fighting for it, even though it may not have directly affected them. Reproductive rights may not directly affect trans women because they may not be able to have abortions or, to get pregnant. But that didn't stop them from protesting with other women. And to then take that narrative and switch it to be against them is cruel and mean and evil. Yeah. I think as a cis woman, obviously, you hold a lot more privilege than a trans woman just because of, how society views gender and sex and all of that. So I think that, obviously you're using your privilege in a very harmful way. And I think J.K. Rowling is very aware that it's harmful. I know that she knows that it has affected millions of lives of trans people worldwide and affected millions of anti-trans legislation and just the talk about trans individuals in sports and in politics, and has grew this hatred towards the trans community. And I don't think that she cares, because I think that she's so deep into her own ideology, and I think that she's so uneducated and ignorant, and that's, to her, she doesn't view this as a harm. She thinks that she's saving womanhood, but you're not saving womanhood. I'm going to try and give an analogy that I think is a really, really good one, just so that you can kind of see the harm behind it, maybe, if you aren't getting it by now. So let's say that J.K. Rowling was saying all of these things that she's saying about trans women, about black women, that she is saying that black women are coming for white women's rights. White women's rights. Sorry, that's kind of a tongue twister. And that black women aren't real women because of the color of their skin, or whatever. Some bullshit like that. That obviously is not true. That obviously is so wrong on so many levels, because the color of your skin, the same way as the sex that you happen to be born in, does not make you any less of a woman. Womanhood is a crazy, to me, to use womanhood and box it is insane, because women have fought for decades and centuries to be put out of boxes and, to state, hey, we are not all the same. We do not all go through the same colors, what the hell? We do not all go through the same issues. We are not all the same, we don't all have the same views. We are not all the same color. We are not all the same political beliefs. There's not one way to be a woman, and that there's no right way to be a woman. Womanhood is up to interpretation. Womanhood is what it means to you. My womanhood may look very, very different from my best friend's womanhood, but that doesn't make any one of us less of a woman. The same way that white women and black women have different experiences revolving womanhood, different struggles revolving womanhood, different privileges revolving womanhood. But neither one of them are any less women, and that's of a woman. And that has never been something that has been up for debate. That has never been something that is being questioned, and it shouldn't be. But to then turn it and say that trans women are not real women because they don't share some of the experiences that cis women do is absurd. Just fucking absurd. So one of the examples that people like to use, well, TERFs like to use, is trans women cannot be real women because they don't menstruate. They don't have the ability to get pregnant or the ability to give birth. And to that, I like to say that while that is true, there are also cis women who cannot give birth, cannot get pregnant, do not menstruate due to hormonal imbalances, genetics, etc. And are you going to attack those cis women and say that they are taking away, the rights of women who can menstruate and who can give birth? No, obviously not, because that's ridiculous and that makes no sense. Same thing, same fucking things with trans women. But that people aren't going to make those connections, and that people are so impressionable and that there's so much hatred towards the trans community, and that is exactly why you took your ideology and went with it and, called it feminism and called it protecting of womanhood, because if you just straight out said some of the facts like how I'm laying them here, trans women are not women. Some people would believe that because some people, don't have a brain, but a lot of less people would be influenced by it because they would all just be like, oh, okay, like what? But when you say trans women are not women because they can't menstruate, and trans women are talking our womanhood because this isn't this, then people are starting to believe it. People are starting to get manipulated, and that's exactly the point. Like, you want to manipulate people into your views. But people start to get manipulated, and because they are like, oh my God, it's not only an issue of, trans people existing, it's an issue of trans people are trying to take away our rights, or they're trying to take away this from us. And I think that when you are in a stage where you have privilege, even if it's not a lot of privilege, as a woman, you still don't have a lot of privileges, but you definitely have more privileges than trans women or something like that. When you stand kind of, I guess there's like a pedestal, which I hate that there is, but there is, right? There's a pedestal, and you as a white woman are pretty high on the pedestal, even though, you are a woman and whatnot. It's like a white cis straight man and then kind of like a white cis straight female, like there's definitely a pedestal, and we're straight cis white women are definitely high up on the pedestal. And so when you have some kind of power, even if it's not all power, and you stand on this pedestal, and you know that there are people below you who have less rights from you, instead of, trying to help them, giving them a hand so that they can also grow and come up the pedestal with us, you want to take them down because you want to stay up on the pedestal by yourself. You want to have all that power to yourself. And I think that is really dangerous, because I think that once you have privilege, and once not once you have privilege, but once you have privilege, and once you feel your privilege and you feel your power, there's two ways that you can go about it. The first road is kind of, helping people out and being like, hey, I have this privilege and I recognize it, and using it for good. And the second road is using it to undermine the people who are below you on the pedestal because you want to keep staying up. And I think that's, we see that throughout history, with kind of like just in general how, men and the patriarchy is still very much entwined into our society, because once you have power, you don't want to give up your power to the oppressed. Rights to the oppressed are never given by the oppressor. It is always demanded by the oppressed. It's always been like that throughout history. Because why would you give away your power? Why would you risk someone being better than you? Why would you risk someone, having the same opportunities as you? Because people view womanhood and view all of this as a competition when it's not. Like I've said before, there's not one way to be a woman. There's not, like, it's not a competition. We can all grow from each other. We can all learn from each other. We do not have to work against each other. But we are. That's exactly what TERFs are doing. They're working against people like them. They are working against people, who have less rights than them, who have less privilege than them. And I think that is infuriating, and I think that is sad. But I don't think that me sitting here talking about how infuriating it is fair, because I'm a cis woman, and I will never, ever, 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 ever understand the challenges and the struggles that trans individuals are going through. And I do not want to speak for them, and I do not want to speak for their pain, but I do want to debunk the myths, and I do want to work hard on uplifting trans individuals and trans rights. So with that being said, I kind of gave some context, kind of why it's harmful, what J.K. Rowling is, and what she does and all of that. But a lot of people have, I think in politics, it's super easy to talk about controversial topics like these because there are so many very highly opinionated people about these issues, and it's super easy for you to gain votes. It's so easy for you to gain votes by just saying, I'm a TERF. Then all of the TERFs are automatically going to vote for you, not knowing any of your other ideologies, not knowing anything else, because they want their ideology to stay in power. They want, again, the whole thing with power, the whole thing with the pedestal, all of that. So they're automatically going to vote for you. So that's kind of where like politicians abuse their power as well. Obviously, we've seen that happen so many times. But politicians are now abusing their power, specifically Republican politicians, where they are, speaking out against trans rights and trans individuals, and they are giving into TERF ideologies and other anti-trans ideologies because they know that it will gain them votes. They know that it is a hot topic right now and that it's controversial and that, there are so many people who have strong opinions about it, and that's exactly what they want. They want to easily manipulate people into voting for them. And by saying statements like that, people will just automatically vote for you. You don't have to give them that much more. They just vote for you. Same thing with like saying that you're a pro-life politician. All the pro-life people are automatically just going to vote for you. Doesn't matter if you stand against something else that they may stand against or whatever. So yeah, but here I'm gonna debunk more of the whole womanhood thing that that the TERF ideology is based upon, where it's like trans women are coming for womanhood. Again, debunking that because, like I said, they were on front lines of protests. That didn't even affect them necessarily. But also, as someone who has trans friends, I've never once in my life felt like my womanhood was under attack by my trans friend. Ever. Ever, ever, ever. My trans friends have never tried to devalue my womanhood or devalue my experiences as a woman. They have always stood by me. They have always supported me. And I think that is also kind of where the issue lies. It's like, when you don't know trans people, when you are not exposed to trans people, you think the worst of them, but you don't really know who they are. And you cannot speak about them because you don't know them. You have never met them. You don't know their struggles. You don't understand their struggles. For me personally, as someone who knows trans people, and I have so many trans people that I love, and consider some of my best friends, it hurts me that they are in pain, but someone who, doesn't have any trans people in their life, they don't care because it's like not an issue that affects them, which I think happens a lot generally in politics and in human rights. It's like, if it doesn't affect you, why would you care? Why would you care, right? It has nothing to do with you, so you don't even care about it. But that's not how the world works, and that's not how it should be, but it's unfortunately how it is. So, yeah, and I think that when you come in, like, I don't know how I'm going to word this, but okay, when you meet a trans person coming in with a TERF ideology and a TERF mindset, it's going to be a lot different than when you meet a trans person with a neutral mindset where you just really don't know much. You're just there to learn. That's kind of how I entered most of my friendships, because I was very young when I met a lot of my friends who are now, like, came out as trans and everything. And I had a very neutral stance beforehand because I didn't really know what trans was. I didn't really know trans people. I didn't know either side. I didn't know the TERF side, and I also didn't know the trans supporting side. Like, I was kind of very much in the middle. I was very much like, I don't know. But then I saw my trans friends, and I saw how good their souls are, how good their hearts are. They are good people. And nothing could convince me that they are not good people. And I guess TERFs and TERF ideology saying, you know, attacking my friends and attacking trans people in general and saying trans people are inherently bad simply because they are trans. To me, that is horrible. You can't say that about a person if you truly don't know the person. You cannot say whether they are a good or a bad person solely based off of a characteristic, a factor of what they are in their lives. Some people happen to be trans. Some people happen to be gay. Some people happen to be black. That's something that those people have going on in their lives. That's not all that that person is. Right? I happen to be gay, but I'm not only gay. And that is not my only like characteristic and my only fact that people can judge me off of. No. I am Nastasia before I am anything else. I am Nastasia before I am a woman, before I am gay, before I am white. I am Nastasia. And if you want to judge me, you can judge me based off of Nastasia, based off of how you know me, not based off of if I'm gay, not based off of if I'm a woman. You don't get to judge me for those things because you don't know anything about those things. And because that is such a personal thing for every single individual. There is not one way to be a woman. There's not one way to be gay. There's not one way to be trans. It is all a spectrum. It is all revolving around personal experiences. And every trans person has a different experience. Yes, there are mutual understandings and mutual experiences and things that, you know, you can relate to within the community, within your community, but some trans people have support from their parents. Some trans people started taking hormone therapy when they were younger. Some trans people aren't on hormones. Some trans people didn't get surgery. This, and some people don't even want it. And you know what I'm saying? Like, there's so many different experiences that we all go through in our lives and differences even within communities. Like, as a gay person, I have a very much different experience of being gay than my best friend who's also gay, right? But that doesn't make me better or her better. No, we just both happen to be gay. And we happen to have different experiences because we don't all think the same. Hello? Even if you want to put us in a box and you want to put a label on us, that you can't expect us to all function the same way, even though we're under a label and we're under a box. Right? And I think that that's another thing that's harmful about society is that they always want to put labels on things and they want to put people in boxes because, one, it's easier to manipulate people if they're in boxes because it is. Like, it's just so much easier to manipulate with people if they're already set into, like, a certain box and you kind of know, like, okay, so you're a woman, so you think this, and, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and you know exactly where their insecurities are and you know exactly this and this and this, and so it's much easier to manipulate them. So that's why society likes to put labels on, and they also like to put labels on things because they want to use it to their benefit, you know? And I think that it's so easy for people to just put labels on things and put labels on people and be like, oh, you're trans, so you're this, this, and this, and this, and you automatically think this, this, and this, and this, you know? Like, no. Like, hello? We're allowed to have different opinions. We're allowed to think differently, exist differently, look differently, act differently, talk differently, have different, like, oh my God. Like, oh my fucking God. There is, like, oh, I hate it. I hate it. I hate society sometimes so much because even, like, for me, there's so many things that I've heard where it's like, you don't look gay enough. You don't look this and this. It's like, there's not one way to look gay. There's not one way to look trans. You cannot tell one person that they are doing transness wrong. No. It's their experience with being trans. And if that feels right for them, then it's right. And it doesn't have to be right for you, but it's right for them. And that's all that fucking matters because it's their life, it's not your life. I can see the correlation here. I'm getting very, very upset and very angry. But I don't want to edit that out. I don't want these parts to be edited out. I want this to be a raw conversation with raw feelings that are coming in to these conversations, because it's real. This is real life, you know? This is how I feel. This is how I talk. This is how I express myself. And yes, sometimes I get very, very angry, but you know, that's part of me, and I want it to be part of my podcast as well. Yeah, because, you know, there's not one way to do a podcast. You can't tell me that I'm doing my podcast wrong by entering these stuff, because it's right. It feels right for me. So it's right for my fucking podcast. It doesn't have to be right for your fucking podcast. You know what I'm saying? Like, all of these things, it's like one thing can be right for you, but it doesn't mean that it's right for everybody. And you don't get to decide what's wrong and what's right for every single individual, for every single trans person. No, that's not on you. That's not something that you get to do. Especially not if you're a cis person. Especially then can you not say that there is a certain way to be trans. And I think that there are a lot of TERFs who, or I don't think, I know that there are a lot of TERFs who specifically try to put even these trans women that they don't even support into boxes where they're like, okay, if you're going to be a trans woman, then you have to look like a woman, and you have to act like a woman, and you have to dress like a woman, and you have to, you know, this, and this, and this, and this, because, like, if you want to be a trans woman, but you don't look like one, then, like, it's all a disguise, and you're just trying to come for women, It's like, no. Stop trying to put trans people into boxes. Stop trying to, like, manipulate. Like, trans people are not your fucking puppets. You don't get to play, like, you don't get to fucking manipulate the ways that they go through their experiences and the way that they go through their lives. Don't expect that from fucking anyone. And another thing that I don't like about TERFs, well, there's so many things, but it's that you are attacking an already super marginalized community, and also get a fucking life. Get a fucking life. Trans people in America take up 0.6 of the American population, of the American citizens, like, whatever. Like, people who live in America, trans people take up 0.6% of those people. 0.6%. And you are so fixated on what the 0.6% people are doing, are acting, whatever, when it's like, you have your own fucking life to deal with, your own fucking rights that are being stripped away from you as a woman, and you are worried about trans people coming for your rights. When have trans people when have trans women ever come for reproductive rights, voting rights, women's voting rights, any fucking right of a woman? When have trans women ever come for that? Never. You know who does come for reproductive rights for women, votes for women, etc.? Cis men, the patriarchy, Republicans. Those are the people you as a cis woman should be mad about if you want to talk about people coming for womanhood, attacking womanhood, destroying womanhood. It's those people who are actively making legislations against you. Not trans women. No. Not trans women. No. Not any other woman who has a different experience than you. No. It's the patriarchy. It's cis men who are in power. It's Republicans. Those are the people attacking womanhood. Someone wanting to play sports in the gender that they are, like, trans women wanting to play in women's sports, that's not attacking your womanhood. No. But Republicans taking away your rights, your reproductive rights, that's attacking your womanhood. That's much more harmful for you. Someone playing fucking sports, nothing to do with you. Someone taking away your reproductive rights, everything to do with you. Everything to do with you and your bodily autonomy and the bodily autonomy of every single woman in this world. And instead of focusing on those real dangers and those real attackers of womanhood, you are making the victims in the situation and the marginalized in the situation to as if they are the oppressor, but they have never been the oppressor. They have only ever been oppressed. They've only stood in the trenches with us and gone through some of the struggles with us. When they take away our reproductive rights, they take away all women's reproductive rights. Whether or not you have the ability to menstruate and the ability to get pregnant, that does not mean that, those are still your rights, your reproductive rights. Regardless, that's still your bodily autonomy that's being attacked. Regardless. So stop trying to come for women and stop trying to make womanhood a battle in a box that everyone needs to fit into, because it's not like that and it will never ever fucking be like that. The TERF ideology is so ridiculous. It's so stupid. It's dumb. It's based off of misinformation. It's based off of hatred and ignorance. And that is just one of the reasons why it's so harmful. And I think I'm gonna wrap it up here, because I think that I've said all of my thoughts and everything that I've had to say. And I definitely, there were moments that got heated and stuff like that, but I definitely hope that this has helped you see the real issues and, the real things that we should be focusing on. If we want to, have womanhood, we want to protect womanhood, then there are real issues that are attacking us, like the patriarchy and, people taking away our bodily autonomy, that we should be focusing on instead of trans women who have never, ever, ever done anything evil to us in their lives. So, yeah. And the fact that so many TERFs defend Republicans, defend pro-life people, defend all of this is even more like contradictory, because it's like you're saying that somebody who hasn't done anything wrong to you is attacking your womanhood, but those people who are doing so many wrong things to you and your bodily autonomy and who are actively attacking your womanhood, you stand by them. And that is insane. So yeah. This feels so different than all my other podcast episodes, and I still hope that it is okay to you guys. I hope that you guys are okay with this kind of content, because I want to make more of this kind of content where it's real and gets heated. And I mean, this is how I get when I talk about politics, and it's not like I'm not talking about my experiences where it's like I'm just talking about my experiences. It's like I'm trying to educate you, and I'm trying to get people to see the other side, because if I have a TERF who happens to be seeing this video, I want them to, by the end of the video, not have that ideology before or anymore. And I don't think that's gonna be the case, but I hope and pray to Taylor Swift that it is. But yeah, thank you for listening. Thank you for supporting me. I love you guys. I love you all. This is a safe space for everyone, and each and every one of you are beautiful just the way that you are.